Hi guys, and welcome to the Euro Car Show. Today I'm in the brand new Mini Countryman Cooper SD All4. And with such a long name, it better be one hell of a car. I say, without further ado, let's go for a ride and have a chat about this car. Alright, so first of all, design. It's a Mini, it looks like a Mini, it's unmistakably Mini, except it's, well, bigger, wider, fatter. Kinda reminds me of a guinea pig somehow. It's kinda cute, but it's still impressive when you compare it to a hamster, and that's what the difference between the regular Mini Cooper SD and this Countryman SD kinda reminds me of. Yeah, I know it's weird, but bear with me. If you compare it to its competition, like the Fiat 500 XL or something, and those cars, because there's been a few now. Crossovers are getting more and more popular, and that's kind of Mini's way to get into that segment. So in the looks department, it's not the best looking car, but it's not the worst looking car, if you put it like that. I mean, Fiat Multipla, but that doesn't matter in this review. As for the interior, well, it's a Mini again, so you get a classic Mini interior. It's pretty well made. You get the BMW infotainment system, which works almost perfectly, I would say. Yeah, the finishes are great. The seats they're okay. I don't know, for some reason I don't feel as comfortable in this car as I felt in the regular Cooper S or even the JCW. Though the suspension, again, I want to mention the suspension since we're talking about comfort. This is a very harsh suspension, and on one side I can understand why they did it like that, because this car handles very well. All-wheel drive is top-notch. Especially if you drive it on concrete. I'm not saying off-roading this car, I'm not saying this is a good off-roader, though it can go off concrete roads, but it wasn't their intention to build an off-roader. This is more like a in-between, like a crossover, like I can do this and I can do that, and yeah, it handles great, really great. But yeah, the downside is the suspension is pretty tough, pretty rough, especially in town. On the highway, if the roads are decent, you don't really feel it anymore. But in town, I mean, sometimes it's just, you know, uncomfortably rigid. Now I sound like an old man, but I guess it matters for most customers. Though if you go for the Cooper SD, why don't you just go for a D? That sounds dirty, but I didn't mean it like that. Yeah, lastly about the interior, it's spacious. You have legroom, you have headroom. That's a bit weird for me, because all the Minis I had in the past were not that practical, except maybe the Clubman, which was decent, actually more than decent. The regular Minis are, you know, small trunks, no rear leg space, and it's fine because it's a Mini. It's supposed to be like a fun, sporty city car, and that's pretty much its market. But this one is top-notch when it comes to space. The trunk, I would compare it to like a 3 Series, but being set up more like a crossover. You get nice big entrance to the trunk, you get enough space for a car in this segment. Let's move on to the specs now. This car is the 2.0 diesel engine. It's obviously turbocharged. It is making about 188 horsepower and 400 Newton meters of torque, which you can feel this car goes pretty well. Also, I love, like, honestly, I love the transmission. The ZF 8-speed is, in my opinion, right now, one of the best transmission you can have in a car. It's just, it shifts well, it's very responsive. Even though it's a torque converter, it basically feels like a dual clutch almost, you know? So why even bother for a dual clutch when you can have this? Yeah, I can understand that in like something like an M4 GTS, but in those cars, even though this is a Cooper SD, this is supposed to be sporty, it's still a diesel, it's still just a Cooper SD, so this gearbox is perfect for the car. You also have to know that this is the All4. All4 means, well, it's all-wheel drive all of the time. This might actually impact the fuel economy, so yes, this is gonna consume a bit more fuel than a regular D. It sounds so weird with the D denomination for this car, like Cooper D. I mean, yeah, just doesn't sound right in my mind. Honestly, on the highway, if you drive at regular speeds, anywhere from about 120 to 130 kilometers an hour, you're gonna get something like 5.5 liters per 100 kilometers. In town, it really depends. I would say anywhere between 8 to 8 point something, not not much over 8, but you should consider a number around that, because this is an all-wheel drive. This is making almost 200 horsepower. There's no way around it. It's not a small car, it's not a light car by any means, so you'd have to expect a little more fuel consumption than a regular 2-liter simply front or rear wheel drive diesel. The average fuel consumption should be in the 7s or lower. It really depends again on your driving style. My driving style is maybe a bit more aggressive. I like to put it in sports, maybe a lot more than I should. I like to, you know, feel the torque and get a feeling for the car. Drive it in a sportier manner. But if most of your driving is happening at regular speeds and no harsh accelerations, this car's fuel economy is very good for what it can do. So, how do I feel behind the wheel of this car? But let me just show you something. This really goes, like, it's incredible how well it accelerates. Just put it in sports, kick the gearbox in S or even manual if you want. But the S is doing its job just fine, maybe even better than putting in manual, and it just goes. It really does have that punch. It's fun, it handles. It's still got the Cooper S DNA, even though it's a diesel, even though blah blah blah, it's a Countryman, it's not the same, but it's still got it, you know. Even though it's bigger, it's fatter, it looks like it's less agile. I don't think it is. I think it really drives incredibly well. But in the time I've spent with this car, I really was impressed. It's the perfect all-around if you're into the minis and this Countryman, which I don't like the looks, but that's up to each and every one of you. I personally just can't stand the looks. I think it's very ugly, but that's just me. But if you like the car and are really interested and are wondering about, well, how does it really feel to drive? Is it a good driving car? Can I also, you know, have fun once in a while? And the answer is hell yeah. You can have loads of fun with this car. I mean, this car is really worth considering. The biggest drawback I saw to this car, and I think everyone will agree with me, that's the price tag. I can't really justify that much money on a Mini when for the same amount of money you could have a Land Rover Discovery Sports or something like that, because this, as it stands, is worth about 46,000 euros, but it really is fully loaded. I don't think there's much missing, but yeah, it's a lot of money. You can have so many cars, maybe not as loaded, not with the same equipment. You can have more prestigious cars for the same amount of money, and that's sometimes a problem with Minis and BMWs. I think they start at a good price. This one is starting at about 29,000 euros here in Belgium. Honestly, yeah, for 29,000 euros at 30, even 35 fully loaded, I would get it. But for that amount of money, it's just, I don't know. I guess it's up to each and one of you, but it's a bit too much for me. Alright guys, I think I've covered pretty much everything I wanted to talk about with you. I'm gonna interrupt myself because there's a Ferrari coming on my left. I don't know if you can spot it. Yeah, it's a nice California. I kinda like those. It looks good. It's Ferrari, come on. I just wanted to tell you that if you have any more questions or are interested in a car and I don't know, something maybe I didn't cover, or because that happens, you know, I'm far from perfect. Please feel free to leave a comment or send me a message or whatever, an email, what suits you better. I'm open to any questions or any discussions you might want to start. It's all up to you, and feel free to do it. Also, you know, just smash the like button. That would be cool, and subscribe for more. It would help me a lot, and hopefully the next car I review might be that Ferrari that just passed by. So yeah, just subscribe so I can, you know, get those kind of cars, please. Yeah, just do it. I just want to mention that people are looking in the rear view mirrors and are watching a guy talking to a camera all alone in his car and making faces, and I think they're a bit weirded out, but yeah, that's new generation. Long live YouTube. Bye.